Thunder cracked like a rifle shot above the mountains, and with it came the storm. Wind tore through the tall grass, bending the pines as if heaven itself grieved. Samuel Hayes, once a name known across 2 territories for taming wild horses, stood alone beside his cabin, hat pressed low, staring into the open dark. He thought the night would swallow him whole. Then came the knock. It was soft at first, almost part of the rain. 3 small taps, uncertain but desperate. He froze, hand hovering over the latch, every muscle tight as wire. On the other side stood 2 little girls, no higher than his waist, soaked to the bone, their braids clinging to their faces. They looked like mirror images carved from the same trembling light, barefoot, shivering, yet unflinching. One held a small locket in her tiny fist. The other whispered through quivering lips, "Mama is lost. Find her." Samuel's heart stuttered. Not because of the words themselves, but because of the way they were spoken. Half plea, half command. He ushered them inside, the storm slamming the door shut behind. The fire was dying, but its weak glow reached the corners enough to reveal how thin the girls were. Their dresses clung to them like second skins, mud streaked up to their knees. Old Marta stirred from her chair by the hearth, eyes sharp as sewing needles. "Lord above, Sam, where?" "They came from the ridge," he interrupted, voice rough from disuse. "Said their mother's lost." The twins sat together on the rug, hands locked. The bolder one studied him with strange calm. "You find horses," she said softly. "You can find Mama." Samuel knelt, the boards creaking under his knees. He hadn't knelt for anything since the war, but something about these children bent him without permission. "What's your name, sweetheart?" he asked. The quiet twin shook her head. "Mama said names are for safe homes. We wait." Their speech held rhythm, native, maybe Apache or Cheyenne, but their tone was something older, worn smooth by grief. He offered them blankets that swallowed them whole. Marta handed them cups of milk. Outside, thunder rolled like God's own drum, and Samuel's mind wouldn't quiet. He studied the locket when the bolder twin finally let him hold it. Inside was a sketch, half-faded, a woman with long dark hair, eyes steady and kind. The hinge creaked when he closed it. "Your mother. Where did you see her last?" "She told us run," whispered the quieter one. "Said men were coming. Said find the good man by the mountain." Her small eyes lifted to him. "We found you." Marta drew in a breath sharp enough to cut. "Sam, this ain't your burden. The sheriff should." He rose to his full height, the shadow of the firelight cutting across his face. "I've buried enough silence to know what happens when men do nothing." That night, he couldn't sleep. The twins dozed near the hearth, their breaths shallow and synced, like a single soul resting in 2 bodies. He sat at the table sharpening his knife, though he had no fight to give. His thoughts drifted to the grave under the sycamore, a wife and son lost to fever 6 winters back. Their laughter still haunted the cabin's walls. He wondered if this was heaven's cruel jest or a chance to mend what life had broken. By dawn, the storm had spent itself. The land steamed under weak sunlight, puddles shimmering like small mirrors. The twins watched from the porch as Samuel saddled his horse. The bolder one clutched the locket tight against her chest. "You'll bring her?" she asked, voice a whisper that could topple a mountain. He adjusted his hat, glancing toward the dark line of forest where mist clung to the trees. "If she's out there," he said quietly, "I'll find her." Sheriff Wade appeared on the trail, horse snorting, eyes wary. "You sure you want this trouble, Sam? Folks say she's from the Red River tribe. Those miners don't like wandering near claim land." Samuel's jaw tightened. "Those miners can choke on their gold." The sheriff studied him a long moment, then sighed. "You always had a death wish wrapped in good intentions. Be careful." When Wade rode off, silence returned, broken only by the wind rustling dry grass. Marta stood on the porch behind the twins, her apron twisted in her hands. "You'll bring her back or break what's left of you," she said softly. Samuel met her gaze. "Maybe both." He mounted his horse and turned toward the ridge. The twins waved, small hands, fragile faith. He didn't wave back. Promises were sacred things, and he'd already given one with his eyes. The cabin shrank behind him, swallowed by distance. The trail ahead wound through hills still slick from rain. Every hoofbeat echoed like a vow. Somewhere beyond those pines, a woman was lost. Somewhere behind him, two little souls waited for proof that the world could still keep a promise. As the sun rose, Samuel whispered to the wind, half prayer, half confession. I failed once. I won't again. And just before the trail bent out of sight, a sound carried faintly through the air, soft, like laughter, or maybe a cry. It came from deep within the trees. He stopped, heart pounding, scanning the shadows. Then, slowly, he turned his horse toward it. The promise had begun to call him back. Gunfire cracked through the still morning air, echoing across the pines like the memory of war. Samuel dropped from his horse, rifle drawn, scanning the tree line. Smoke curled up from the valley, thin and gray, a camp recently abandoned. The earth was torn where someone had fallen, and a ribbon of blood led toward the river. He followed without thought, boots sinking into the wet soil, every breath tight as wire. Then he saw her. She was half hidden beneath a willow, ankle twisted, one arm clutched to her ribs. Mud streaked her face, but her eyes were fierce, unbroken. The woman from the locket. The missing mother. She flinched when he knelt beside her, knife in hand to cut the snare tangled around her foot. Don't touch me, she rasped, voice cracked from thirst. Samuel sheathed the blade, setting his canteen within reach. You've got two little ones waiting, he said softly. They came to my door. Her breath hitched, disbelief flickering like a candle in the wind. The twins? They live. He nodded once. The tension in her shoulders eased, but only a little. She took the canteen, sipping as if afraid it might vanish. He could see she hadn't eaten in days. Her name came in a whisper. Ayanna. She tried to stand, nearly fell. Samuel caught her without thinking, steady hands holding her weight. She tensed again. White men took everything, she murmured. Why should I trust another? Because I stopped counting losses, he said, and started keeping promises. They moved slowly, step by step, until his horse came into view. He lifted her into the saddle, careful not to meet her gaze too long. She watched him the way the wilderness watches fire, drawn, yet wary of being burned. For 2 days they traveled the long ridge homeward. At night, they shared silence by the fire. Ayanna stared into the flames, eyes reflecting worlds he'd never know. Once, she spoke of her tribe driven off their land, of miners who came with guns and greed. She'd fled under moonlight with her daughters, praying the wind would hide their tracks. Samuel listened, not with words but with stillness. He'd lost everything to fever once, she'd lost hers to men. The wound was the same, only the weapon differed. When she slept, he kept watch. Wolves cried somewhere beyond the ridge, mournful and long. He thought of the twins curled safe by Marta's fire, waiting for a promise to come true. By the third morning, color returned to her cheeks. She moved with less pain, spoke with more strength. You said they came to you, she asked quietly. Why you? Samuel smiled faintly. Guess they saw something good I stopped believing was there. The road narrowed as they reached the valley. Smoke drifted again, this time not from campfires but chimneys. The cabin stood ahead, small and stubborn against the mountainside. The twins were outside, barefoot as before, eyes wide when they saw the riders. They ran, shouting their mother's name. Ayanna slipped from the saddle before the horse stopped moving. The girls crashed into her arms, laughter breaking through tears. Samuel stood aside, hat pressed to his chest, the ache in him both heavy and holy. Marta came out wiping her hands on her apron, eyes wet. You did it, Sam. He didn't answer. He couldn't. The sight of the three clinging to one another filled something hollow inside him, yet it also left him trembling. He'd found what was lost, but now, he wasn't sure what came next. The peace didn't last. Down the trail came 4 riders, miners by the look of them, rifles slung, faces mean and familiar. The leader spat into the dirt. "That's her," he barked. "The one who stole from our camp." Samuel stepped forward, calm as stone. "She stole her life back. That's all." The man sneered. "Then I'll take it again." Before he could raise his gun, the sheriff's voice rang out. "That's enough." Wade rode up fast, badge glinting. "She's under protection now." Tension hung like a blade in the air. Samuel's hand hovered near his holster, the miners glaring, uncertain. Finally, the sheriff motioned them away, his tone low and final. "You boys leave before I forget the law favors peace." One by one, they turned their horses and rode off, muttering curses into the wind. The threat retreated, but the memory lingered. As the sun bled into evening, Samuel stood at the fence, watching Ayanna with her children. She laughed softly, a sound fragile as spring water. For the first time, he realized he wasn't just keeping a promise. He was part of it now. She looked over, catching his gaze. "You didn't have to come," she said. "Didn't know how not to," he replied. For a long moment, neither spoke. The air between them felt like the quiet before rain, heavy with something unnamed. When night came, he saddled his horse again. The world beyond the valley was calling, same as it always had. But as he turned toward the open trail, 2 small voices broke the hush. "Stay," one twin whispered. "Mama said good men don't walk away." Samuel hesitated, staring into the dark. Somewhere beyond those hills lay the life he'd left behind. But here, by this small cabin and its fire, waited something he hadn't known he was still searching for. He tipped his hat toward them, voice low and rough. "Maybe just a while longer." And as the wind carried the faint sound of laughter behind him, a quiet truth settled deep in his chest. He hadn't found their mother. He'd found his own way home.